Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We bring good tidings and a happy final, a victory over Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Luke Jones, I think our relationship began with a Ravens victory over the Patriots back on a cold day when Ray Rice ran wild. Come a long way, and I tell you what, anytime you beat the Patriots, you feel good about it. But when you beat them by 17 points in the fashion that the Ravens did, in the way that they wore them down in the end, in the way that they counterpunched in the second quarter in Tom Brady and answered that, you just got to feel good about the Baltimore Ravens here in the first week of November, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you could feel any better. I mean, I guess if they were 8-0, I mean, sure. But I think you just look at how this team has played, save for really the Cleveland game. Because even that Kansas City game, if you think back to week 3, we weren't exactly talking all gloom and doom. It was the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes on the road. There was no shame in how that played out. This has been a damn good football team. And I think when you win in the fashion that they did on Sunday night, in convincing fashion. I mean, this team absolutely dominated the Patriots for the first 17, 18 minutes. Of course, they struggled in the second quarter. They struggled big time in the first half of the third quarter with New England kind of just cutting through the defense like a hot knife through butter. But to your point, they answered, and then they just completely dominated over the last 19, 20 minutes of that football game. So when you look at the end result and you consider that this was a New England defense that, even though it hadn't been tested, and we talked about that, he still hadn't given up more than 14 points in a game, I believe. They were giving up roughly a touchdown per game. In today's NFL, even against the worst teams, that's still impressive. So this isn't at all to be dismissive about the New England defense, because that's a darn good defense. Is it historic like the numbers were looking? Maybe not. But take nothing away from what the Ravens did on Sunday night. That was as convincing as it gets. And while it's not as meaningful as the game you mentioned, that January 2010 game, or some of the other Ravens wins over the Patriots, there haven't been too many of them over the years, mind you. But this was on the heels of the Seattle game and the bye week and all the talk about what was New England going to do to stop Lamar Jackson. This was as emphatic of a statement as you can make, and long way to go, but there's no one you should be talking about in better terms than the Ravens in terms of the NFL's elite right now. There are other teams that you can put in that conversation, but when you have that conversation, the Ravens certainly need to be in it because they are rapidly proving themselves as not just the class of the AFC North, but a legitimate Super Bowl contender halfway through the season.
Well, you beat an undefeated team, even when it's got Patriot Pat on there, and there's Tom Brady over here, and Bill Belichick over there, and McCourty making a really big blunder late in the game. I mean, they never really recovered from that. They were still in the game at 8 minutes, and they were out of the game by the time they got the ball back. But the veteran presence, these guys that have won Super Bowls, lost Super Bowls, played in big games, there's not a whole lot of that. I mean, I think you and I talked about this a little bit last week about how long 2013 was ago, how long 2016 was ago, how few of these guys have buckled a shin strap and gone out and seen Tom Brady and not had a little yellow, puddle between their legs. Certainly, that was never Joe Flacco's thing, right? Like, Joe Flacco always showed up against Tom Brady. And Lamar, this was sort of first chance, right? And how would it look and who would make mistakes? And turns out Mark Ingram was the guy to put the ball on the ground. Cyrus Jones, the guy to put the ball on the ground. Chris Moore put the ball on the ground. There was some sloppiness, and when that happens and Tom Brady seizes and scores a touchdown, or you just hold them to a field goal, and the first one was just a field goal, it's that counter punch. I mean, I almost asked John Harbaugh in the aftermath, I almost said, hey, how about your brother-in-law with basketball runs, right? Like, it felt to me at 17-0, here comes Duke, with the run at Cole Fieldhouse, and they're going to catch you by halftime, and then it's, well, how do you come out and play in the second half? And boy, the Ravens checked some boxes because Tom Brady, at one point, I went back through my Twitter feed, I said he was getting medieval on them because he was.
Yeah, I mean they did what you would how you would want them to respond. I mean, New England, as much as it was 17-0, and you're thinking, my goodness, this is a blowout. I think everyone in the back of their mind knew that while it didn't mean the Ravens were going to be doomed or anything like that, but it wasn't going to be that easy for 60 minutes, and that proved to be the case. And a lot of that was self-inflicted with, as you mentioned, putting the ball on the turf. But I think we've seen Lamar Jackson enough now in roughly a year. I mean, this was his 15th career regular season start, 16 now counting the playoff game. We've seen him, and we've seen this version of the Ravens that is much different than any version of the Ravens we've seen before. We've seen them show some character in some of those situations where a team punches back a little bit. But to do it against New England, and really when you look at how that second half started, Patriots moving right down the field, they get the fumble. Humphrey returns it. I mean, that was a free 7 points there, but that doesn't disguise the fact that New England was carving them up. I mean, they were moving right down the field, and you were just thinking you can't go 3 and out. I mean, this was right around the midway point of the third quarter. You can't go 3 and out there, and the Ravens were close to going 3 and out there and punting the ball back to them, and then you're saying, well, here we go. This is New England's chance where they're going to seize control of the game, or they can seize control of the game at that point. And what happens? Lamar Jackson connects with Mark Andrews on third down. Later on, you have the 4th and 4 conversion to Willie Snead. I mean, I think we've seen this team, whenever they're in position where they have a lead or they need a drive, they've been able to do it. And you look at what they did in that second half when you have drives of 8 minutes and 9 seconds and then 9 minutes and 35 seconds. I mean, there you go. I mean, that's over a quarter of time right there on 2 drives.
And by the way, all it takes is 1 third-down penalty by Jason McCourty to open the door for it to become that. And that is really where Tom Brady gets you, right? Like, you get in a bad third down, you make a penalty. Next thing you know, 4 minutes later, you're back on the goal line when maybe you would have been off the field. And when that door gets kicked open, it's not a quick 3 and out. It's we're going to continue to grind you and pound you and turn this into an 8 and 9 minute drive. I mean, this team's the king of the 8 and 9 minute drive. And Luke, I think it was around this time last year when Lamar took over and we began seeing that. There was a point in the game, and I sit with Don Moeller and Jeff Moeller up in Section 513. There was a point in the game where I think Mark Ingram only got 5 yards on first down. And we were all like, I said, man, I remember when 5 yards on first down was pretty good. Now it's almost like if you're not in 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 3, it's like you failed on first down or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that extreme, but yeah, I mean, you kind of expect them to be able to do their thing, and I think that's what was probably jarring, even though it really shouldn't have been if we're being realistic about it. I mean, again, that's a really good defense they played on Sunday night. I know Ravens fans, I saw it on Twitter, they're frauds, and, that defense they didn't play anybody. No, a lot of this was the Ravens offense. And, Nick Boyle said it over the course of the week. He said, look, that's a good defense, but they haven't played an offense like ours. And he wasn't saying it in a cocky way. It was more so he was being truthful and acknowledging that their offense is way different than anything else you see in the league. And Lamar Jackson, other than Deshaun Watson, probably about the closest thing. And Deshaun Watson's the more accomplished passer at this point, I'd say. But Lamar Jackson is the far superior scrambler. And that's saying a lot because Deshaun Watson can move. But you just don't see quarterbacks like that. And you don't see offenses like this, especially. As much as I mentioned Watson, I mean, it's not like Houston's a team that runs for over 200 yards against people every week. I mean, that's not really their MO. I mean, this is definitely a different kind of offense. So for the Ravens to get in a position where they can jump out to the lead that they did, I mean, think about it. In that first quarter, I tweeted this out at the end of the first quarter, the Ravens had 133 yards in one quarter. The Patriots had the ball for 132 seconds in the first quarter. That just speaks to how lopsided it was. So, okay, you're not going to keep that up for an entire 60 minutes. And Lamar Jackson even alluded to that in his post-game press conference, kind of just talking about going through the adversity. You're not going to play a perfect 60 minutes. What they did against Miami is as close as you get to that, and you have to be playing a terrible team in order to do that. So,
well, when you told me they beat them 59-10, that did not translate to beating the Patriots 37-20. There was no beating them means nothing, right? It's when you do it against Tom Brady. It's when you do it 3,000 miles from home against Russell Wilson. That almost makes like Cincinnati this week like trivial. Like they can't lose to Cincinnati, and I know that's not that's certainly not the case.
Yeah, but be careful with that.
Yeah, exactly. But you do, and we have never seen a Ravens team peak early, have we? Really, right?
2006.
Okay.
2006 they peaked. Yeah, they were 13-3, Nestor. I mean, yeah. Now, in the Harbaugh era, absolutely. You're totally right about that. But, I mean, 2006 is the one year that this is in some – and I guess we'd be remiss if we didn't at least acknowledge that the 2012 team was 9-2 at one point, and then they had their December tailspin that everyone kind of figured was going to cost them – and then it didn't cost them, but you're right. I mean, they haven't been in this position too often where you're saying halfway through the season that they're, if not, I don't want to say they're the favorite to go to the Super Bowl, but other than New England, and well, they took it to New England. Now, granted, if they played in Foxborough or if they played next Sunday, it might be a little bit different, but they're right there. You certainly can't mention any other team in the NFL right now in more flattering terms than the Ravens. You can say as flattering. You could say that they're one of 4 or 5, quote, elite teams in the league right now, but they're in that top tier, and you're right. That's pretty rare territory for a Ravens team over the history of their existence.
I don't think we've ever had MVP chants. I mean, I don't know that I heard those for Suggs. I'm not even really sure I ever heard those for Ray Lewis, because there were other kind of chants. But to hear MVP chants in our stadium, it's kind of a heady place and kind of a different place that in the aftermath of all of this, yes, the Ravens beat the Patriots, and yes, they're in first place, and yes, even Pittsburgh, the blind squirrel found the nut, and there have been other things, the Chiefs, winning a game, I mean, that kind of would affect the Ravens when it comes to a second seed or a third seed, but this is really, Lamar Jackson went out on the field and beat Tom Brady. I mean, to me, that's the aftermath of this story is our quarterback good enough? We've asked that. We asked that question about Lamar the whole offseason, and would he be good enough right now? Not how's he going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Will he mature? Will he get better? Can he be that guy right now? Can he beat Tom Brady and Russell Wilson back to back? Yes. And for that, that's the ultimate confidence builder for any fan of any organization or, anyone following a team is, do you have a quarterback that can win a big game? Yeah, we do. He's won a few of them. And they're not the biggest games. They're not January games. We never had to worry about that with Joe Flacco. Literally, even though they didn't get up the mountain after 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever. But if he got into a game in January, you didn't want to see Joe Flacco get off the bus. You just didn't. Because he had that thing. Lamar is building up that thing here right now.
I think it's different. I think Lamar Jackson, because of his skill set being as unique as it is, I think it's, for me with Joe, especially over the last few years, and look, you know that I was extremely critical of the organization and not putting enough around him and draft picks or whatever it might have been, but I think that makes me feel different in watching this team now with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback is he's the kind of guy that you don't need all the variables to be perfect for him to make plays and to make something happen. I mean, we saw it in the Seattle game. I mean, they weren't running the ball between the tackles very well. Their receivers are dropping passes left and right. Lamar Jackson put that team on his back in Seattle. Now, Sunday, it's not as though you look at it from a statistical standpoint and you're so overwhelmed by it. I mean, he ran 16 times for 61 yards. I mean, that's a 3.8 yards per carry average. Now, there were some kneels in there. But my point is, it's not as though he broke off 7 or 8 different runs for 10 or 15 yards a pop. You look at him passing, 17 of 23, as far as completion percentage, is really good. 163 yards, 26 yards, if you remember, were kind of that little flip to Marquise Brown that was really a run more than a pass, but it just goes down as a pass. So it's not as though you look at the yardage and you're like, oh my goodness, I've never seen anything like this. But when you watch him with your eyeballs, you see something so unique. You see something that really looks special. And I mean, I'm at a point now with Lamar Jackson now about a year into this thing. Look, it's never a guarantee that anyone's going to win a Super Bowl. I mean, that's just the truth. Dan Marino is one of the all-time great quarterbacks in the history of this league, and he didn't win a Super Bowl. And I don't think that was because of him. It's because you can't do it by yourself. But what I'm seeing in the confidence that I see this team have, the it factor that he has, the intangibles that he has, I'm really not at a point anymore where I'm asking, can they win a Super Bowl with him? I think they can. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's not guaranteed. I mean,
but he's not Nathan Peterman, you know what I mean? And this isn't some sort of flash thing. This is going to have to be dealt with by defensive coordinators and by personnel people. And right now, nobody has a handle on 1st and 10 with him that doesn't turn into something really gruesome defensively, because there are not a whole lot of negative yardage plays. I mean, even when they fall forward.
Sure. But you know, going back to the point I was trying to make, I mean, I don't see anything in his game that tells me they can't win meaningful games and win in January and maybe win a Super Bowl. Let's face it. I mean, first of all, no one ever chanted MVP at Joe Flacco in the regular season. That's
a fact.
You know, I love Joe Flacco, but he was never even close to that conversation. And
well, maybe that's to my point. They never won a lot of big October games to have you thinking on November 1st they're the best. They might win the Super Bowl. I don't know that I've had those heady thoughts a whole lot in early November where they look like they're an ascending team right around now, right around bye week. I mean, you talk about the freeze out of 01. You talked about 12. This is a different sort of enthusiasm for them to win this kind of a. I don't know. Go back through 23 years. I just don't remember them winning these kinds of games in the back-to-back in the middle of the year. These are the kind of games they lose. That Seattle game they always lost, right? Like, that was always, to get to that next level, they would always get sort of beaten down in that game this time of the year. I just feel a different, to your point, can they win a Super Bowl? Yeah, I think they can. And because of that, all of a sudden, there's purple flamingos on the lawn again. And it's happened very, very quickly, I think.
Sure, and it's all about Lamar Jackson. It is. I mean, we can, certainly other people deserve credit, and certainly there are other players that are important. Coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for fully embracing having a quarterback with a unique skill set and not pushing back against that, but to absolutely embrace it and to build your offense around it. But this is about him. It is. It's that simple. It's time for people to stop trying to be dismissive. And I think there are very few people that are still trying to hold on to that. And I don't know if it's just because we all hate to admit when we're wrong. I mean, it's just what they have here is something that really looks like it's got the potential to be special, and I think it already is approaching that. And I just see it with the enthusiasm of this locker room, these guys talking about him, and when things aren't going well, he's the guy you turn to make a play, and more often than not, he's coming up with those plays. I mean, you just look at how this team has played this year, and you know, they're 6-2. As I mentioned, the Kansas City game's fine. You know, they lost to the Chiefs on the road. There's no shame in that. And yeah, he didn't play his best football there, but other than one dog performance for team-wide against Cleveland, and I'd say Lamar Jackson didn't play his best football in Pittsburgh. I mean, if we're being totally honest there, but he's played at an extremely high level. And again, statistically, is it going to look the same as other quarterbacks? No, but at the same time, he made some really key throws in some big spots. Didn't throw it a ton. 23 pass attempts. I mean, I think we've seen ideally he's throwing somewhere between 20 and 30 times a game. That's kind of where he is now. A year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I mean, that could be different. I mean, he's already gotten better as a passer, but what he is right now, I think is absolutely good enough to win and continue winning and play into January and play deep into January and maybe even deeper than that. Again, there's no guarantee. If the Mile High Miracle never happens, we're never talking about Joe Flacco as a Super Bowl quarterback. I mean, that's, or maybe if Lee Evans catches the ball the year before, they win it then. So there's always other stuff involved. There's luck. There's, bad fortune. I mean, there are a lot of variables
officiating.
involved. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Ask the New Orleans Saints about that last year. But if you're just talking about the quarterback piece to this, even if it is unconventional, even if it isn't the traditional pocket passer, I'm going to tell you, I think they can win with Lamar Jackson, and that's an exciting sentiment when you're talking about someone who's 22, and next week in Cincinnati he'll be playing his 16th regular season start. So you're talking about a guy who now has a little over a full year under his belt when you count the playoff game and the little bit of experience he got before the transition last year. So you just see someone who really handled things. And how about another factor? We haven't talked about this nearly enough. I've mentioned this a couple times here recently at WNST.net, but what was one of the big factors we talked about with Lamar Jackson last year? The fumbles, right? Ball security was such an issue. He has been superb in that area. When you look at how many fumbles he had last year and how few he has this year, he has taken care of the ball. And that's no easy thought.
He touches the ball a lot, man, and the ball's wet, and sometimes the field's wet, and sometimes he's wet, and sometimes the snap's high, as it was in the end zone at one point early in the game. The ball felt like it was going to go over his head. But man, there is something about every little nuance of his game. And this is the thing that they had talked about is every little part's gotten a little better. He's gotten a little better with the media, a little better with his star, a little better with his command, just a little better with everything. And then, there's a pass with bad touch. We saw one of those sailors that happened that got away from him. But when it's him, I think there was more speculation on that or more sort of scrutiny of that because he had not had success as a passer, and he's never going to be a guy who's going to be 37 of 61. That's just not going to be his game. And the efficiency part of this, that the fact that there were only 6 times that the ball hit the dirt in the game, and there's only once or twice he gets caught behind the line of scrimmage somewhere to lose a yard or 2 or 5 or whatever, that really goes into the efficiency of whatever the analytics of this are, right? That all of your plays are positive plays. You don't dirt the ball. You don't go backwards. You get yourself in good down and distances to give yourself a chance on the next play to get the sticks. And the next thing you know, you look up and it's 9 minutes later and, you're in the red zone.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't even know how much of this is really about analytics because analytics don't account for a talent like Lamar Jackson. I mean, analytics would tell you throw the ball on first down and you throw the ball way more than the
analytics would tell you don't draft him and don't play this kind of offense because no one's ever won with it before, right?
Well, I mean,
maybe.
I mean, there have been teams that have won with dual threat quarterbacks. It just looks a little bit different. I mean, Steve Young was a dual threat quarterback. Now, will Lamar Jackson ever become the passer that Steve Young became in San Francisco? I don't know.
If he does, he's going to the Hall of Fame because Steve Young went to the Hall of Fame.
Right. But I'll say this. I mean, he's already better than he was his rookie year. So
sure.
I don't even want to put that much of a ceiling on what he does as a passer. I think we all need to kind of just realize what's happening here and enjoy the ride a little bit. I mean, this is, last year it was the whole embrace the weirdness thing that I kind of coined that funny phrase and it looked weird and we all wondered, okay, how long is this going to last? And, well, took him to the playoffs. Saw what happened against the Chargers. Keep in mind that was his 8th career start. And the Chargers did a good job. And he had a bad game, and the Ravens' offensive line got their ass kicked. I mean, there wasn't any magic formula that the Chargers used there to, quote, figure out Lamar Jackson. And I think as we keep going on, and, another test will come in a few weeks when they play San Francisco, another defense that's playing outstanding football, and we'll see how they do against Lamar Jackson. But now we're starting to see that it isn't just against really bad run defenses like we kind of saw last year down the stretch, and you kind of wondered, okay, You do this against Cincinnati, you do this against KC, you do this against Tampa Bay. Those are all really bad run defenses. So you can kind of point to that, but now you see this work against the defense like New England. We've seen it against some other better defenses, and we'll see what happens against San Francisco in a few weeks. But at some point in time, the body of work becomes large enough that you just acknowledge that, yeah, you can win like this. Now, you're not guaranteed to win every week. I mean, it's the NFL. You got to go out there and play. And we saw what happened against Cleveland in Week 4. So there's no guarantee with that. But as we go along further and further with this, and we see this kid keep getting better, and you see the intangibles, you just see how he handles himself. I mean, how many quarterbacks, even veterans like Joe Flacco, who have had success against New England, will still have another game that you throw in there, like the last time the Ravens had played in New England in 2016, where they were kind of overwhelmed. You see veteran quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger is a great example, someone who's been overwhelmed playing New England over the years. You're talking about a Hall of Fame quarterback in Roethlisberger's case. So you just see their ability to rattle quarterbacks, let alone talking about someone who's 22 years old. And Jackson, he just handled himself so well in that game from a composure standpoint. That they threw so many different looks at him, and he handled it. It's not to say that he made the perfect play every time, but he didn't make the disastrous play. He didn't make the crucial mistake that cost you a football game or cost you your lead or give the momentum right back to the opposite side. And we just haven't seen him do that very much. He didn't do it a whole lot last year. I mean, fumbles aside, he didn't throw a lot of picks or anything like that last year. But he's taking care of the ball and he's making plays. That's a pretty impressive combination there for a 22-year-old quarterback, where you can ask a first or second year quarterback to play game manager, and let's face it, that's largely what Joe Flacco did his first couple seasons. And why not? Because they had a great defense and they could run the ball. He didn't have to do a ton at that point. But young quarterbacks, you can ask them to kind of take care of the ball, or you kind of take them off the leash and ask them to make plays. Well, usually turnovers are going to come with those big plays. We're seeing a combination of Lamar Jackson making big plays, but also making wise decisions and not making crucial mistakes and not turning the ball over. And look, he's still 22. He's still young. He has a year's worth of starts under his belt. He's going to run into some more valleys. There are going to be some challenges ahead. And, I think a perfect example of that is look no further than the division. I mean, Baker Mayfield last year looked like he was going to be a star, and this year it's a lot different. So it can be fleeting. But
2-6.
Time goes on, as time goes on, though, you're just seeing a bigger body of work that I don't know how you can watch Jackson on a weekly basis and not be incredibly excited as a Ravens fan. Understanding, he's got to get better still in some areas, but he's already gotten better. And the fact that he's already getting better and they're winning and he wants to be great, and you ask him about a couple passes he misses in a post-game press conference and he gets ticked off, not at the question, but at himself for missing those plays. I mean, there's absolutely, there's such an infectious aspect to his personality and his desire to be great that you can just see why this organization has fallen in love with him as quickly as they have. And again, there's no guarantee you ever win a Super Bowl or anything like that. None of that is, that's no one's birthright until you go out and do it. No one thought Tom Brady was going to win a Super Bowl when he took over for Drew Bledsoe early in the 2001 season. But I think Lamar Jackson is absolutely capable of directing a team and playing and leading a team to a Super Bowl if the stars align right. And whether that's this year, and it could be, or next year, or a few years down the road. I mean, I think he absolutely can do that if he stays healthy, which is the same story for every other quarterback, every other player in the league. So I think it's a heck of a lot of fun. And I think for a national audience on Sunday Night Football, they kind of got to see what Lamar Jackson's all about. And boy, we need to stop saying he's like a video game because I made the comment. I think video games would like to be as fun as Lamar Jackson. How about that?
Well, the schedule makers got it right? We got a couple of primetime games coming up here already on the schedule. We're going to be out in L.A. We're going to see that. We're going to see the Thursday night game. So there's plenty of focus on Lamar, and he'll have some opportunities. The thriller has come to Baltimore. He wears number 8. Lamar Jackson putting the Ravens on his back, 37-20 victory over the New England Patriots. We got tons of stuff ahead. We got Baltimore Positive all week. We're going to be out at State Fair. We're going to be at Fadley's. You can learn more about all of our Baltimore Positive stuff. And hear from Mark Weller at our friends at Port Covington. Learn a little bit about that this week as well at Baltimore Positive. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Strategic Factory going to be out fitting me in some new stuff. I did wear my throwback WNST hoodie from 2013, the one with the orange and the purple in it. I wore that when we beat Tom Brady up at Foxborough for the AFC Championship game. So I busted that out. But Strategic Factory is going to be outfitting me with new stuff, so I'm looking forward to that as well. The BuyAToyota.com Audio Vault is there 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. The morning newspaper ships digitally. Luke's stuff is in there. All of our Audio Vault stuff in there. All of our Baltimore Positive stuff in there. All of it brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. $5 down, $10 a month, and always around the corner, it is Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Dennis Colazzo is going to be here Thursday with the Dennis Colazzo Show. We're rebranding around here at WNST, including Baltimore Positive, including some new shows, some new stuff. It's exciting. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.